Hello friends, welcome to Texage, our official YouTube channel where we share all types of legal, taxation and financial related matters which helps you in running your business and personal finance smoothly. The video for today is Doctrine of Legitimate Expectation. This doctrine talks about fulfillment of the promise that is made, and here the promise means just not any bare promise, but a promise that is done with the expectation of the opponent party to act upon it. It's kind of an agreement we are talking about. अगर हम एक पार्टी से डील करते हैं कि ये फ्रिज मुझे पसंद आया, ये आप मेरे घर भिजवा दो, मैं आपको पेमेंट ऑन डिलीवरी दे दूंगा, तो इट इज़ अ प्रॉमिस दैट यू विल पे हिम व्हेन ही विल डिलीवर इट टू योर डोर स्टेप. हियर देयर इज़ अ कॉज, देयर इज़ अ अफेक्ट. Cause is that he will be delivering the refrigerator, and the effect is that you will be making the payment upon delivering. There have been multiple functions and doctrines that have been formulated in order to keep this fair and just, so that a party is not betrayed. Here the doctrine of legitimate expectation is dealt with a purview of a authority. Legitimate एक्सपेक्टेशन जो यहाँ हम बात कर रहे हैं, ये बात करता है एक नॉर्मल पब्लिक का एक्सपेक्टेशन अगेंस्ट एन अथॉरिटी और जुडिशरी, कि वो क्या एक्सपेक्ट करता है जो जुडिशरी विल एक्ट अपॉन. दिस एक्सपेक्टेशन कैन बी through a statute or through a precedence. कि ऐसा हुआ था पिछले केस में, सिमिलर सर्कमस्टांसेस, सिमिलर सिनेरियो को देखते हुए, तो मेरे केस में भी ऐसा ही होगा. लास्ट केस में अगर हमने ये देखा था कि इफ़ अ मैन स्टील्स फ्रॉम योर शॉप और ही इज़ वैंडलाइजिंग योर शॉप, ही विल बी पेनलाइज्ड and you will be compensated for that. तो जब आप अगला सिमिलर केस लेके कोर्ट में जाओगे, अथॉरिटी के पास जाओगे, पुलिस के पास जाओगे, तो यू विल हैव अ लेजिटिमेट एक्सपेक्टेशन कि यहाँ भी ऐसा ही होगा, दैट द ऑफेंडर विल बी बुक्ड एंड पेनलाइज्ड एंड you will be paid the damages. The doctrine of legitimate expectation is not a codified law. Neither it is written in any statute or rule book, but it is a general understanding of common man towards the judiciary or authority. Let us discuss one case about how the civil services matter was dealt in the court by this principle. The doctrine is not a specific legal right engraved in a particular statute or rule book. The first time an attempt was made to establish the principles of the doctrine were in the case of Council of Civil Services Union and others versus Minister for the Civil Services. It is a 1985 case that the decision by the public authority should affect the person such that his right or obligations are altered which are enforceably by or against him. He is deprived of some benefit or advantage which he had been permitted by the authorizing body in the past and which he could have legitimately expected to enjoy until a valid ground for withdrawal of the same was communicated to him, or he had been assured by the decision-making body that such a benefit or advantage would not be withdrawn until him being given an opportunity of contending reasons as to why they were withdrawn. Now let us see one case study which was dealt in the state of Kerala versus K. Madhavan Pillai. The doctrine of legitimate expectation was firstly discussed in the Indian arena in the case of State of Kerala versus KG Madhavan Pillai. This is a 1988 case. Herein, a sanction was issued for the respondent to open a new aided school and to upgrade the existing schools. However, an order was issued 15 days later to keep the previous sanction in abeyance. This order was challenged by the respondent in lieu of violation of principles of natural justice. The Supreme Court ruled that the sanction had entitled the respondents with legitimate expectation, and the second order violated the principle of natural justice. Similarly, there was another case. Let's see that also. In another Supreme Court case, Navjyoti Cooperative Group Housing Society versus Union of India. This is a 1992 case wherein the new criteria for allotment of land was challenged. In the original policy, the seniority with regards to allotment was decided on the basis of date of registration. Subsequently, a change in policy was made in 1990, changing the criteria for deciding seniority based on the date of approval of the finalist. The Supreme Court was of the opinion that the housing society were entitled to legitimate expectation owing to the continuous and consistent practice in the past in matters of allotment. Court further elucidated on the principle stating that presence of legitimate expectations can have different outcomes, and one such outcome is that the authority should not fail legitimate expectation unless there is some justifiable public policy reason for the same. It is further emphasized that availability of the reasonable opportunity to those likely being affected by the change in a policy which was consistent in nature is well within the ambit of acting fairly. The Honorable Court held that such an opportunity should have been given to the housing societies by way of a public notice. Now in another case, which is Union of India versus Hindustan Development. In Union of India versus Hindustan Development Corporation, this is a 1993 case. The Supreme Court has dealt with the doctrine in great detail, starting with the explanation of the scope of the doctrine in Halsbury Laws of England, 4th edition, volume 1, 151, which says that a person can have a legitimate expectation of being treated in a certain fashion even though he doesn't have a legal right to receive the same. What are the circumstances for the formation of legitimate expectation? This was discussed in a 1994 case in the state of Tamil Nadu. Let's discuss that. Circumstances which may lead to the formation of legitimate expectations were postulated in Madras City Wine Merchants versus State of Tamil Nadu. This is a 1994 case where namely few points were broadly put out. Point 1. If there was some explicit promise or representation made by the administrative body. Point 2. That such a promise was clear and unambiguous. Point 3. The existence of a consistent practice in the past which the person can reasonably expect to operate in the same way. In another case, it was laid down in PTR Exports Madras Private Limited and others versus Union of India and others. This is a 1996 case that the doctrine of legitimate expectations has no role to play when the appropriate authority is empowered to take a decision under an executive policy or the law itself, and that the government is not restricted from evolving new policy on account of legitimate expectations, as and when required in public interest. Similar thing was observed in MP oil extraction versus the state of MP. This is a 1997 case. The Supreme Court ruled in MP oil extraction versus state of MP, this is a 1997 case, that the doctrine of legitimate expectations operates in the realm of public law and is considered a substantive and enforceable right in appropriate cases. It was held that the industries had a legitimate expectation with regards to past practice and the renewal clause, that the agreements are renewed in a similar manner. Let's discuss another case of 1998, which is S. Raghunathan versus NBCC, that is National Building Construction Corporation. In National Building Construction Corporation versus S. Raghunathan, which is a 1998 case, respondents were brought on deputation for an overseas project that was to be carried out in Iraq by NBCC, that is a government company. The respondents chose to draw their salary in the same scale as of employee of CPWD, along with deputation allowance. They were also given foreign allowance at 125% of their basic pay. However, their basic pay was revised. It was contended by them that this allowance should be paid out of the revised pay scale. The claim, which was based on legitimate expectation, was rejected by NVCC. The court agreed with the decision that no such promise or agreement was carried out by NVCC. The court, while elaborating on the doctrine, stated that the doctrine has its genesis in the administrative law and that government departments ought not to act in an unfettered manner guided by abuse of discretion. The court also pointed to a procedural aspect, stating that the contention of legitimate expectations should have been raised in the pleading itself, and thus the High Court was erroneous in allowing the plea at the stage of argument in the absence of pleadings and affidavit to support the same. It can be inferred from the aforementioned case that the doctrine has both substantive and procedural facets to it. Now let us discuss with the purview of doctrine of legitimate expectation in view of Article 14 of Indian Constitution. The doctrine's use has essentially been embedded into Article 14 of the Constitution, and thus non-arbitrariness and unreasonableness have been made the necessity qualifiers for assessing as to whether there was a denial of legitimate expectations or not. Such a mandate has made the doctrine quite redundant in the Indian context. For the doctrine to grow individually, it is necessary that lower standards are set as qualifiers, which undoubtedly may run its own risk like a too much judicial intervention. Now let us conclude this doctrine of legitimate expectation. Doctrine has gained quite a significance in the recent years because the normal public, the common citizen, have a locus standi where he may not have a legal right. But there are certain expectations from the judiciary, from the Constitution of India, for being a democratic country. Every person has some rights, and it is the duty of our Constitution to protect it. Let's discuss few points here. The doctrine of legitimate expectations very well leads to a procedural right, that is right to judicial review in India. But the substantive aspect of the doctrine can be said to be in a budding stage. There has been a lot of hesitance amongst academicians as to whether the doctrine should apply to substantive rights at all. It has been argued that application of the doctrine to substantive rights might result in failure of separation of powers and would qualify as overstepping of judiciary powers. So this has been all for this doctrine of legitimate expectation. I hope you have liked the video. If you have anything else in this doctrine that you would like to know, or any case study that you would like us to discuss, you can write in the comment box. You can expect a reply ASAP. Thank you. Keep liking and keep showering the love, and do subscribe our channel. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.